Have you ever stood in front of a mirror, not to check your hair or fix your shirt, but to ask yourself a much deeper question? Am I living wisely? It's not loud. It doesn't demand attention, but that quiet question? It carries incredible weight. Now pause for a moment. What does it even mean to live wisely? According to Stoic philosophy, it's not about how much you've read, how many degrees you've earned, or how eloquent you sound in conversations. Wisdom, in the eyes of the Stoics, is revealed in the choices you make, especially when things go wrong. It's in how you respond to chaos, how you treat people when no one's watching, and how aligned your life is with reason, virtue, and self-awareness. But here's the twist: foolishness isn't about being dumb or uninformed. The Stoics were clear. Foolishness is refusing to live with intention. It's the decision to ignore what's right, just because it's hard or uncomfortable. It's living on autopilot, disconnected from your values. In this video, we're diving into something that might make you squirm a little, but in the best way. This isn't about shaming or pointing fingers. It's not about judging anyone. It's an honest invitation to reflect, to ask the hard questions most people avoid. Because often, it's not what we don't know that keeps us stuck. It's what we refuse to face. So, if you're ready to explore your own blind spots, if you're willing to challenge your old patterns, and if you're open to seeing yourself through the lens of ancient, enduring wisdom, then stay with me. As we continue this journey of reflection, let's take a deeper look at what we might be overlooking. Because sometimes, the signs of foolishness are not loud, they're polished, curated, and easy to admire. On the surface, sign number 1: prioritizing. Appearance over character. Picture this. You meet a woman who seems to have everything together. Her makeup is flawless, her wardrobe impeccably styled. Her Instagram feed glows with selfies, filters, and picture-perfect smiles. Her confidence seems untouchable. She walks into a room and effortlessly turns heads, but something feels hollow. Look past the surface, and you may find there's little depth beneath the image. Her energy is centered around maintaining how she looks, not cultivating who she is. And that's where the Stoics would raise a red flag. According to Stoic philosophy, there's nothing inherently wrong with beauty. But when beauty becomes a mask, something we hide behind, obsess over, or build our identity upon, it becomes one of the clearest signs of foolishness. Why? Because it distracts us from the deeper, lasting work of shaping our character. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, who you truly are isn't reflected in a mirror, it's revealed in your choices, your thoughts, and how you respond when no one is watching. Character doesn't fade. It doesn't wrinkle. It doesn't depend on lighting or filters. It's built slowly through discipline, through kindness, through courage. Now, let's be fair. Taking care of your appearance is not a bad thing. Dressing well, grooming, presenting yourself with care, those can absolutely reflect self-respect. But when appearance becomes the core of your worth, when your self-esteem hinges on likes, compliments, or comparisons, you've stepped onto dangerous ground. Why? Because all external things are fleeting: youth, attention, admiration. They come and go like the tide. And when your identity is tied to things that vanish, what happens when they're gone? You're left with insecurity, with envy, with emptiness. The foolish woman clings to what sparkles. The wise woman invests in what endures. True beauty, the Stoics taught, is found in how you live in your patience, your honesty, your compassion. They would ask, are you feeding your mind with wisdom? Are you strengthening your soul through discipline and virtue? Are you choosing kindness, even when it's hard, even when no one sees? Because eyeliner fades, outfits go out of style. But your example, the way you live, the way you love, the way you uplift others, that's what echoes long after you're gone. So ask yourself, would you rather be remembered for how attractive you looked in a photo, or how deeply you impacted someone's life with your inner strength? If your energy is constantly spent chasing validation through appearance, you may be trading short-term approval for long-term emptiness. But there's another way, a better one. And it starts with asking the hard questions. What do I actually value? Am I shaping myself into someone I'd admire beyond the reflection? The Stoics believed that chasing beauty without virtue is like polishing a shield, while neglecting the warrior within. And that's a battle you'll never win. So the next time you find yourself scrolling endlessly, comparing your reflection to someone else's highlight reel, pause, because the real war isn't on your screen. It's within you. Let's keep going and uncover the next sign that might be quietly shaping your life without you even noticing. So, as we've just seen, beauty without virtue is an empty pursuit. Now let's turn inward to the one thing that matters even more than how others see you, how you choose to live with accountability. Sign number 2. Ignoring self-responsibilities, a simple, yet life-altering truth that Stoicism teaches. Life is your responsibility. No excuses. No shortcuts. No one else to blame. But here's the catch: this truth, while empowering, is often the hardest to accept. When things fall apart, it's incredibly tempting to point fingers. We blame our upbringing, our boss, our partner, our friends, or even society at large. We tell ourselves, if only they treated me better, if only the system was fair, if only the world wasn't so harsh, then maybe, just maybe, we'd finally be happy. But that mindset? It quietly hands over all your power. The woman who refuses to take responsibility becomes a prisoner to her own life. She waits for people to change, for circumstances to improve, for luck to show up. And while she waits, nothing changes, because growth doesn't happen in waiting. It begins the moment you take ownership. The Stoics were never naive. They understood that life can be wildly unpredictable and deeply unfair. We can't control what storms come our way, but we can control how we respond. And that response? That's where your freedom lives. That's where your wisdom begins. Think of someone who constantly complains about her job. Her boss is difficult, the hours are long, the pay is low. And maybe she's right, those issues could be real. But pause and ask, is she doing anything to improve her situation? Is she learning new skills, searching for better opportunities, or adjusting her mindset? Or has she become trapped in a cycle of blame, waiting for someone else to rescue her? Taking responsibility doesn't mean pretending life is easy. It's not. It means refusing to let adversity define who you are. When you stop blaming others and start owning your part, even in the small things, you reclaim the reins of your life. You move from victim to creator. And that shift, while subtle, changes everything. Let's be honest. Responsibility is uncomfortable. It demands humility. It means looking in the mirror and admitting, maybe I played a role in this. Maybe my reaction, my fear, my habit contributed to this mess. That kind of self-honesty stings. But it's also the doorway to freedom, because once you acknowledge your role, you gain the power to rewrite the story. This isn't about perfection. It's not about beating yourself up for every mistake. It's about being honest enough to ask, what part did I play here? What can I learn from this? How can I grow rather than shrink from this experience? The woman who embraces responsibility doesn't wait for peace to be handed to her. She creates it through her attitude, her actions, and her courage to face what's hard. She doesn't run from life's problems. She meets them head-on, knowing that every challenge is a mirror. And what you see in that mirror, that's what we'll explore next. Let's keep going. We just explored the power of personal responsibility. The moment you stop waiting to be saved and start shaping your life from within. Now let's look at another subtle trap that often goes unnoticed, but carries just as much weight. Sign. #3. Overvaluing others' opinions in today's world, where approval often feels like currency. It's easy to lose yourself trying to please everyone else. You post a photo within seconds, you're checking the likes. You share a thought, then instantly wonder if it sounded smart enough. You make a decision, then question, but what will they say? This is one of the quietest, most draining traps of modern life, living as if your entire worth depends on how others see you. And according to Stoic philosophy, this isn't just emotionally exhausting, it's a sign of foolishness. Why? Because when your identity is built on the shifting opinions of others, you're building your life on sand. You become like a leaf in the wind, drifting in whatever direction approval blows. The foolish woman constantly adjusts herself, filtering her voice, her values, even her truth, just to avoid judgment or win praise. But in trying to become acceptable to everyone, she loses something irreplaceable, her center. Let's be clear, caring what others think isn't inherently wrong. We are, after all, social beings. But there's a huge difference between considering feedback and being enslaved by validation. When every action is filtered through the question, how will this be perceived? You stop asking the questions that truly matter. Is this right for me? Does this align with the person I'm becoming? Living for approval isn't just exhausting, it's unsustainable. You will never satisfy everyone. And the more you try, the more fragmented you become. You end up wearing different masks for different people. Until one day, you forget who you really are underneath it all. Here's a tough truth. Some people will misunderstand you no matter how careful you are. Some will judge you, some will envy you, and some will dismiss you entirely. That's not your problem to fix. It's your challenge to rise above. The Stoics taught us to measure ourselves not by public applause, but by private integrity. They didn't ask, will people like me? They asked, did I act with wisdom? Did I remain true to my values? Because when your inner compass is strong, the noise of the crowd loses its grip. This kind of self-trust isn't built overnight. It takes time. It grows through daily choices, choosing truth over popularity, depth over performance, and authenticity over approval. So what do you do when the urge to seek validation creeps in? First, pause. Notice it, without shame or judgment. Then gently come back to yourself and ask, if no one ever knew I made this choice, would I still make it? That one question, it cuts through the noise. It brings you back to clarity. And remember, some of the wisest women in history were misunderstood in their time. Their strength, their independence, their refusal to conform it unsettled people. But they didn't bend, because living wisely was never about being universally accepted. It was about being internally aligned. Your worth isn't something for others to vote on. It's not up for debate. It's already within you, quiet, uncheckable, and waiting to be claimed. So what does it look like to truly stand in that kind of self-worth? Let's move forward and explore the next sign that may be holding you back without even realizing it. After exploring how self-worth must be rooted in inner alignment, not public approval, it's time to look at another powerful lesson from Stoicism, the art of emotional control. Sign number 4, emotional instability and overreaction. We've all witnessed it. Some of us have even lived it. Simple disagreement suddenly spirals into a shouting match. A minor misunderstanding grows into lingering resentment. One rude comment from a stranger, or one small unexpected delay, and somehow the entire day feels ruined. This is emotional instability. And according to Stoic wisdom, it's one of the clearest markers of a foolish mind. But let's be clear, the Stoics never taught that we should suppress our emotions or become emotionless robots. They understood that to be human is to feel anger, joy, sadness, excitement, fear. These emotions are natural. The problem isn't feeling them. The problem is being ruled by them. The true difference between a wise and a foolish person is in whether they feel anger or frustration. It's in how they choose to respond. A woman who is ruled by her emotions often reacts before thinking. She speaks words she later regrets. She makes impulsive decisions, ones that ripple outward, with consequences she never intended. Her mood swings don't just affect her, they shape her relationships, her productivity, her inner peace, and worse, she often blames others for making her feel this way. Without realizing it, she surrenders her power the very moment she loses control. Here's the uncomfortable truth the Stoics ask us to face. You are not responsible for what happens to you, but you are always responsible for how you respond. Life will frustrate you. People will let you down. Plans will fall through, but none of those things have the power to destroy your peace unless you let them. Because when you hand your emotional state over to external forces, you've already lost control of your well-being. And this isn't about bottling things up or pretending to be unaffected. It's about transforming how you carry emotions so they don't carry you away. Emotional stability is not coldness. It's courage. It's the strength to pause when you're provoked, to breathe instead of lash out, to choose your response rather than be dragged by your impulses. So ask yourself, how many times have you let one angry moment stain an entire day? How often have you looked back and realized it wasn't the event, it was your overreaction that caused the real damage? Emotional instability doesn't just affect you, it ripples outward. It pushes people away. It creates tension, distrust, and unnecessary drama. And over time, it shapes how others see you. People may admire your intelligence, your talent, your beauty, but if they constantly feel like they're walking on eggshells around you, they won't stay in your life for long. So how do we build true emotional strength? It starts with self-awareness. Learn to notice your emotional triggers. When anger, jealousy, or panic begins to rise, don't act, just pause. That tiny space between emotion and reaction, that's where your real power lives. Then ask yourself, is this reaction helping me? Is this worth disturbing my peace? Am I acting with intention or just releasing tension? You'll often realize the issue isn't nearly as urgent or dramatic as it first felt. Another powerful shift? Focus only on what's within your control. You can't change how others behave. You can't predict or prevent every setback. But you can choose how you show up calm, grounded, and unshaken. That's the Stoic ideal. That's real strength. Of course, there will still be days when emotions get the best of you. You're human. But how you handle those days, that's what we'll begin to unpack next. As we just reflected, the strongest woman isn't the one who controls the world around her. She's the one who learns to master herself. And one of the most powerful ways to protect that inner strength is by questioning what we chase. Sign number 5. Materialism and greed. Picture a woman who, at first glance, seems to have it all. She steps out of a luxury car, carries designer bags, and wears outfits that command attention. Her lifestyle glows with polished success, from exotic vacations to the trendiest restaurants. But if you pause and look deeper, you may notice something missing, not in her closet, not in her wallet, but in her spirit. This is the trap of materialism, when your sense of worth becomes tied to what you own instead of who you are. Stoic philosophy sees this not as a sign of power, but as a clear sign of foolishness. Why? Because all material things are temporary. They rust, they fade, they go out of style. They can be stolen, lost, or replaced overnight. And yet, many people spend their entire lives chasing them, believing happiness lies just one purchase, one promotion, or one shiny milestone away. But the more you chase it, the further it seems. And that's the cruel twist of greed. The woman who believes that more will finally make her feel enough ends up feeling emptier than ever. True wealth, the Stoics taught, has nothing to do with accumulation. It has everything to do with contentment. A rich life is not filled with possessions. It's filled with purpose, clarity, and inner peace. And none of that can be bought. But here's the thing: materialism today often wears a disguise. It's not always flashy or obvious. Sometimes it hides behind ambition. Maybe you're not obsessed with handbags or luxury labels, but you're constantly chasing titles, status, or the need to be seen as successful. You tell yourself, once I hit that next goal, I'll finally feel worthy. But somehow, the finish line keeps moving. This kind of striving isn't fulfillment. It's hunger. And it never ends. The Stoic path encourages us to pause and ask, am I chasing this because it reflects my values? Or because I'm afraid of seeming small in someone else's eyes? Escaping this trap doesn't mean rejecting ambition. It doesn't mean giving up joy or living without pleasure. It means realigning learning to value what actually matters. Stoics practiced intentional simplicity. They would deliberately go without certain comforts, not to punish themselves, but to train their minds, to remind themselves that they were stronger than their cravings, that peace can exist even in simplicity. And that self-restraint is a kind of freedom. You don't need to throw out all your belongings to adopt this mindset. But you can begin with a shift in focus. Ask yourself, what am I grateful for right now, without needing anything more? Am I buying this from a place of joy or out of fear? Is this thing adding meaning to my life, or just filling a momentary void? Because when you stop measuring your worth by what you own, something remarkable happens. You start to feel lighter, freer, more grounded in who you are, not what you have. That's where true power begins, not in the things that decorate your life, but in the values that define it. So if you catch yourself in a cycle of wanting, consuming, and comparing, pause, turn inward, and remember, the richest life isn't built through acquiring. It's built by appreciating, simplifying, and choosing what truly nourishes your soul. As we just explored, true wealth doesn't come from possessions. It's found in how you live, how you give, and how deeply you're rooted in your values. Now we turn to something quieter, but even more essential: the courage to look inward. Sign number 6. Avoiding self-reflection and growth among all the signs of foolishness. This one may be the most quietly dangerous, the refusal to reflect. The avoidance of honest self-examination, because without reflection, there can be no growth. And without growth, wisdom simply cannot exist. It's far easier, more comfortable, even to stay distracted, to scroll endlessly, to binge watch, to stay busy from sunup to sundown, anything to avoid sitting still with your own thoughts. It takes real strength to pause and ask, am I truly living well? Am I becoming the person I want to be? A life without reflection is a life running on autopilot. You may look like you're moving forward, working, achieving, staying productive. But inside you're stuck in the same reactions, the same behaviors, the same poor choices. And then you wonder why nothing ever really changes. Foolishness doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it looks like comfort, like a routine that no longer challenges you, like the quiet resistance to change. It shows up when you avoid feedback, when you brush off your mistakes, when you convince yourself that growth is for other people. But the Stoics taught that reflection isn't about guilt. It's not about beating yourself up or obsessing over every flaw. It's about realignment. It's about pausing long enough to observe yourself honestly, and then using that awareness to live with more clarity and integrity. The wise woman doesn't fear her flaws. She faces them. She doesn't see her mistakes as failures, but as teachers. She doesn't label herself based on the past. She uses the past as fuel for improvement. And self-reflection doesn't require hours of meditation or some spiritual retreat. It starts small, just a few quiet moments at the end of the day to ask, what did I do well today? Where did I act out of fear instead of strength? If I could do today over, what would I do differently? It also shows up in real time. When you're in conflict and you pause to ask, am I reacting or responding? When you're making a choice and you stop to wonder, does this align with who I want to be? Another powerful and often overlooked tool. Feedback. Not the flattering kind that makes you feel good, but the kind that challenges you. That comes from people who love you enough to be honest, even when it stings. Because the truth is, we all have blind spots. And growth only happens when you're brave enough to see them. So how can you embrace this kind of inner clarity in daily life? Let's explore that, along with the final reminder Stoicism offers for anyone committed to living with wisdom. As we discussed before, true growth begins with self-reflection. But the journey doesn't end with looking inward, it continues with how we show up in the world. And sometimes, the loudest barrier to wisdom is the one we rarely notice, the sound of our own voice. Sign number 7. Talking more than listening. Among all the subtle ways foolishness reveals itself, this one might seem harmless at first, but it carries real weight. Talking more than listening. In a world that often rewards visibility, volume, and putting yourself out there, silence can be misunderstood as weakness. But to the Stoics, silence intentional, thoughtful silence was one of the clearest marks of inner strength and wisdom. The foolish woman feels an almost constant need to fill every gap with her voice. She dominates conversations, she interrupts, she gives advice that no one asked for, and she rarely pauses to ask herself, am I truly listening or just waiting for my turn to speak? Her sense of identity is wrapped up in being heard, not in hearing others. On the surface, it might look like confidence, but underneath, it often masks something deeper, a fear of being unseen, a hidden insecurity, or a belief that speaking equals power and silence equals weakness. But here's the truth. The woman who cannot listen is the woman who stops learning. She becomes trapped in an echo chamber of her own, making repeating the same thoughts, the same feelings, the same assumptions. Never challenged, never stretched, never changed. The Stoics believed that true growth begins with humility. And humility begins with listening, not surface level nodding. Not pretending to pay attention while mentally crafting a clever reply, but being fully present. Active listening that comes from curiosity and care. It means entering a conversation without the urge to dominate, correct, or impress. It means being more interested in understanding than being understood. And this isn't just about manners. Listening is a mirror. It reflects your ability to quiet the ego, to make space for something greater than your own opinion. When you genuinely listen to others, to the world around you, even to your own inner voice, you become more grounded, more compassionate, more wise. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop assuming. And you begin to understand. In contrast, the woman who talks constantly might gain attention in the moment, but she loses connection in the long run. People may smile and nod, but underneath, they feel unseen, unheard, or dismissed. And over time, that creates distance emotionally, relationally, even spiritually. Learning to listen doesn't mean silencing yourself. It means knowing when to speak and when to simply hold space. It's realizing that not every moment needs your opinion. Not every silence needs to be filled. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can offer is your presence. Your calm, judgment-free, patient presence. So how do you begin building this kind of presence in everyday life? Start by noticing your patterns. When someone speaks, are you truly hearing them or already preparing your reply in your mind? Do you interrupt? Do you steer the conversation back to yourself? Before you speak, ask yourself, am I sharing something of value or just trying to feel important? Am I contributing or just craving validation? Another powerful practice is intentional silence. Try sitting with someone you trust, just listening. Don't interrupt. Don't advise. Don't try to fix. Let their words land. Let their story breathe. Let your ego rest. You might be amazed by how much people reveal when they finally feel heard. And in that stillness, something else begins to emerge. Let's close this journey with a final reflection, one that brings all these signs together and leaves you with something timeless to carry forward. As we uncovered in the last section, deep listening isn't just a social skill. It's a gateway to clarity, connection, and wisdom. But there's one more voice that often gets drowned out in all the noise. Your own, not the voice of doubt, not the inner critic, but the quieter voice, your intuition, your inner compass. Too often, we forget the importance of listening to ourselves. Not the fears, not the insecurities, but that deeper knowing that emerges in moments of stillness. Because true wisdom rarely shouts. It comes quietly, in the space we create when we finally stop talking and start paying attention. At its core, talking more than listening isn't just a bad habit, it's a spiritual block. It disconnects you from others. It disconnects you from truth. And most importantly, it disconnects you from your own growth. The woman who constantly talks may grab attention for a moment, but the woman who listens deeply, who observes, reflects, and remains present, she earns something far greater: respect, wisdom, and lasting inner strength. So ask yourself, when was the last time I truly listened with my whole heart? When did I choose silence? Not because I had nothing to say, but because I had something to learn. Because in the stillness, truth speaks, and only the wise have ears to hear it. In conclusion, the path to wisdom. So, there you have it. 7 signs of a foolish woman, through the timeless lens of Stoic philosophy. Not to shame, not to judge, but to awaken reflection. Because true wisdom isn't about having all the answers. It's about being willing to grow. Each of these signs points to a place where we may be out of alignment with our values. But here's the beauty. Change begins the very moment we become aware that it takes honesty to admit where we've gone off course, and courage to choose a different direction. You don't need to fix everything today. Wisdom isn't about overnight transformation. Even the smallest shift, a single new thought, a quiet moment of self-awareness, is a step toward a more grounded, powerful life. So take a breath. Be gentle with yourself. And ask, which of these signs spoke to me most? Where can I begin? If this video stirred something in you, take a moment to reflect. Maybe share it with someone you trust. Or simply drop 3 words in the comments. My reflection, because there is more to explore. There's more growth to come. And the woman who chooses wisdom, even when it's hard, is already becoming powerful. In the truest sense of the word. Your next step awaits.